to order. Welcome here, everyone. At this point, I will ask Councillor Bill Hiebert to give the opening.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. This fall, I had the privilege of riding along with a friend while he was harvesting his wheat crop. An interesting experience. This brought me into looking back as to to do some research as to how our community of Steinbach began. In 1874, we were a small farming community of 18 families, 16 families having parcels of land that measured 225 feet wide, 225 and 1,160 feet long, which was 6 acres. The other 2 families had double lots. The settlers arrived in mid-September, so it was too late to plant a crop. Plus, they were busy making shelters for the families. Most common shelters that first winter was a semblin, and you see one at the Steinbach Mennonite Village Museum. They were made of sods, partially in the ground, timber roof with straw covering. Also building shelters for the cows, oxen, chickens, and other animals, which they had bought on arrival in Winnipeg. The animals were kept on their small acreage with a community pasture for cows and oxen, feeding them during the day on the south end of the village. A herdsman was hired by the village to tend the cattle during the day, bringing them back for milking and shelter at night. The herdsman would come along the main street, blowing a horn at 7 a.m., notifying that he was herding their livestock, and if anyone slept in, not hearing the horn, they'd have to chase their own cows to the pasture. By spring of 1875, they started breaking up the virgin soil with yoked oxen, pulling a 12-inch plow with the farmer guiding the plow. Mosquitoes were almost unbearable, but they managed to plant oats and potatoes that spring. Later on in summer, with dry weather conditions, disaster struck. They had an infestation of grasshoppers, which totally destroyed their oats crop. In 1875, again that same year, the reserve with all the Mennonite communities of the southeastern Manitoba had broken up a total of 3,000 acres of land. And within 3 years, they were at 7,200 acres. 1876 saw the first successful wheat crop, although weak results because of frost damage. And within 4 years of the start, in other words, 1878, I guess, the East Reserve was self-sufficient, growing enough wheat, barley, oats, and potatoes for their region. Wheat harvest in those years averaged at 12.5 bushels per acre. Compared to today's harvest, most farmers will get up around 80 bushels per acre. The price of commodities were very low. Wheat was at 35 cents a bushel, oats at 15 cents a bushel, and 25 cents for barley. Early on, eggs were at a high price, 40 cents a dozen, but so many people started farming chickens that there was a supply and demand issue which brought the egg price down to 8 cents a dozen within 2 years. Butter sold for 5 cents a pound. Commodities were sold in Winnipeg and other surrounding communities. Steinbach as a community was plagued with water problems, swampy, low-lying land, which made farming very difficult. So within a short time, a number of our residents became very entrepreneurial, putting up blacksmith shops that manufactured implements for agriculture, supply stores, and also the first cheese factory was built in Steinbach in 1889 by Klaus W. Reimer, who went on to build 2 more cheese factories in Greenfeld and Blumenort. I think Greenfeld, I'm not sure if that's Grunthal or not, but that was the community at the time. Many other businesses got their start in Steinbach, including Western Canada's first Ford automotive dealership, which was awarded to J.R. Friesen on June 6, 1914. As time passed, Steinbach became known as the Automobile City of Manitoba, a major manufacturer of windows, manufacturers of pharmaceuticals, steel products, trucking companies, home to a number of international trucking firms, several large construction firms, and many more businesses, which I would not be able to number out at this time. Let's not forget, we currently are the center for agricultural equipment sales and service. In fact, today there are as many agricultural dealerships as car dealerships. According to Statistics Canada, 9% of Manitoba's GDP is agriculture, and much higher in southern Manitoba. Manitoba seeds 13.5 million acres annually, producing 27 million metric tons of grain worth $10.2 billion. And they export just under $5 billion every year. Agri-processing sales are at $8.4 billion annually, with $4.7 billion in export. 36,000 plus Manitobans are directly employed by agriculture. With all that said, I want to say thank you to all the farmers in our surrounding communities who work long hours to provide food for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hiebert. Moving on, item 3, we're going to adopt the agenda. Just before I call for a motion on this, just to let council know that item 8B has been postponed to a future meeting. So with that one change, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Susan Penner, seconded by Councillor Bill Hiebert. All those in favor? That is carried. We have the minutes from the November 19th, 2024 regular council meeting. Council, can I have a motion to approve, please? Councillor Siemens, seconded by Councillor Damien Penner. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. There is no business arising from the minutes. Council, can I have a motion to excuse Mayor Earl Funk and Councillor Jake Hiebert from the meeting tonight? Councillor Bill Hiebert, motion to approve?
Yes.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Damien Penner. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. There is no public hearing and there is no delegation tonight, so we will go to 8A, reports and recommendations of the city manager, proposed amendments, official community plan and zoning bylaw resolution. Mr. Workington, can I get you to introduce this one, please?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of council. This is a summary report prepared by administration as a result of a fairly lengthy process that is ongoing that is related to the city's review of its official community plan and also zoning bylaw. This process started in 2023, so like I said, has been ongoing for some time. There are significant changes to both of these land use policy documents, and a summary has been attached as part of this report. At least at this point, as I go through the proposed changes, I will highlight several of the typically common changes that we're suggesting. Although the report is quite lengthy, I won't mention all of it. But firstly, with respect to the official community plan, the Planning Act that governs how municipalities are intended to develop their land use policies requires that municipalities review that document at least once every 5 years. Even though it has been slightly longer than that, the review process actually started within the 5-year timeline. But with respect to the official community plan, that sets a very high level and general policy statements and principles with respect to the city. So for example, land development policies that are being recommended include things like expanding the sections in the land development areas to include policies on affordable housing. With respect to transportation policies, administration is suggesting that council consider policies that increase active transportation networks and ensure new developments create active transportation connections. For municipal services and utilities, there are expanded sections to ensure that buildings connected to municipal water systems shall not also be serviced by private wells. In commercial policy areas, for example, there are several policy changes recommended, with one being business attraction and retention will be encouraged through policies and zoning. And through the Central Business District and Transitional District policy areas. Some examples include the city actively promoting activity in the Central Business District through recognizing the importance of larger outdoor spaces for social purposes and promoting and conducting street festivals, parades, and other special events. As I mentioned, there are several additional areas that council would see represented in that report. Further, as administration has been going through the review of its official community plan, it has also undertaken a review and update of its zoning bylaw, partly because it also is a land use policy document that is reviewed on a regular basis, and also to ensure that the city zoning bylaw also then aligns with the official community plan document and the policies within them. So for example, within the zoning bylaw, the proposed changes, there was significant efficiency gains with the review, with a key one being the elimination of overlap and redundant policies and language. And what we found is we're able to reduce the zoning bylaw from its current 155 pages to 106 pages. With respect to zoning district policies specifically, in the central business district, for example, administration is recommending the removal of the requirement for street edge landscaping. In the transitional pod, we're suggesting several changes, one of which would be permitted offices and personal services as of right, as opposed to requiring a conditional use or other approvals. With respect to proposed parking within the city's land use policies, we are suggesting replacing requirements that were previously based on hard-to-measure metrics. Whereas, for example, if a particular type of business parking requirements were determined based on the number of chairs present within a professional building, for example, that would now be recommended to be based on square footage, as is common with other commercial operations. We are also suggesting changes to use-specific development standards. For example, more recent development starting to be seen in Steinbach is data processing centers, or essentially Bitcoin mining operations. Those are proposed to become conditional uses in industrial categories. We've also looked at some changes to the city's dimensional standards that are presently located in our zoning bylaw. And also some key differences or new items that we are suggesting within the zoning bylaw relate to definitions. So for example, we are recommending that the zoning bylaw remove specific definitions for terms that are not used or no longer used. We are also suggesting combining uses to eliminate overlap. So for example, parks and dog parks, greenhouse plant and tree nursery to be referred to as landscape or garden contractor and landscape or garden supplies. One other change is that the recommendation is to also revise the definition of social services facilities and add a new definition representing emergency residential shelters and supervised consumption sites within the city of Steinbach. Before concluding, I would just like to refer to the city planner, Lacey Gaudette, just for further comments with respect to what the proposed timeline and the next steps would be.
We have completed the drafts of both the official community plan and the zoning bylaw, both of which been informally circulated to the community planning office with the province, as they are the approving authority for the bylaws. We've addressed their concerns as well, so based on their recommendations, we've made all changes, and we are now in the process of finalizing the public engagement. The intent is to have that within the middle of January, and foreseeing any hiccups or issues, the intent is to be able to do first reading for both the official community plan and the zoning bylaw in February, which would allow the public hearings to occur in March for both documents. Yep.
And with that, then the recommendation from administration is that council provide direction by resolution to proceed with the proposed or with the changes as proposed. And if council does provide authorization to proceed, administration would then move to finalize the draft bylaw documents and then proceed with the public engagement and formal approval process.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Workington. Obviously, a lot of work has been going into this by our staff and our consultants, and also council has obviously spent time in these discussions as well. And so, council, I'll turn it over to you. We do have a proposed motion on page 12 of our agenda. And so, council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Damien Penner. So, Councillor Penner, go ahead.
Thank you. Just in summary, the Planning Act requires all municipalities and urban centers to review their land use policies every 5 years to ensure that the policies that are in place are an accurate representation as to how a community is growing and developing. Steinbach's current official community planning zoning bylaw were adopted in 2018, and as the city administrator said, since the spring of 2023, they've been working with consultants to update, revise, and make changes to these documents. So the city's official community plan provides the long-term vision and goals for the city as to how administration and council want to see the city develop over the next 25 to 30 years. As was mentioned, one of the recommended changes as it pertains to land use includes adding policies on affordable housing. And this is something we want to be proactive about and has changed significantly since 5 years ago, given how much costs have rapidly been rising over the past few years. Another adjustment pertains to what we designate as our central business district. Now that the event center is up, it makes sense to increase the central business district to include the area around the event center and remove the central business designation where we don't foresee business development, such as Main Street East. When it comes to the zoning bylaw, it addresses more immediate needs of planning and development and is a guide on how the city will be built within the next 5 years. It provides specific and general standards to development. A few recommended changes include reducing parking by 1/3 for all uses in the central business district. Since council has approved virtually every variance for reduced parking in the central business district, it makes sense for the zoning bylaw to reflect this. Another change I would like to highlight is allowing for detached secondary suites as a conditional use in rural residential properties, as long as the principal dwelling is owner-occupied. The purpose of this change is really to allow for intergenerational living. So if a family is a caregiver to aging parents, this allows for a detached suite to be built on the same property within certain parameters. Or perhaps a secondary suite could be used for an adult child with a disability. It allows for independent living, but also means that help and support is nearby if needed. I think this is an excellent change and encourages family and helps reduce pressure on caregivers. And the last change I would like to highlight is adding the new definition emergency residential shelter, as well as making it a conditional use. Currently, an emergency residential shelter would fall under the social services designation, which is a permitted use in the city's commercial policy area. The need for this change was recognized when the inn announced that they intend to build an overnight homeless shelter on Main Street, and the recognition that a typical social service organization that has regular office hours where people are coming and going is very different than an overnight service such as a homeless shelter where people are staying 24/7. The benefits to adding this separate definition are twofold. First, it will allow those most impacted by the addition of an emergency residential shelter to have a way to officially voice their concerns. As it stands, there's no formal way for neighbors, businesses, or residents at large to express their concerns and objections should a project like this be proposed in their neighborhood. Second, it means that the applicant of an emergency residential shelter has to have a firm plan in place before bringing it to council. The way it is now, a plan could change many times, which also makes it difficult for the neighborhood to know what is going on and whether they object or not. So in summary, what we are doing here today is approving the proposed changes, allowing for administration to move forward with the public engagement process.
Thank you, Councillor Penner. Councillor Penner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Our last official community plan and zoning bylaw was done in 2018, so some members of council here haven't had the opportunity to go through this process, and it's quite an extensive and lengthy process, as administration already said, and thanks to administration for holding our hand as we go through this and have to give feedback back to them. Some of the highlights that I wanted to also talk about that I felt were some of the most impactful, or maybe the most interesting to some community members, was for public transport, or for active transportation, that we're going to be encouraging new developments to create active transportation connections, so that we're going to be connecting these new neighborhoods together. It's going to give the opportunity for transportation means other than by vehicle. It's something that is very important, especially for younger families, to be able to use that as a larger network. Something that we're already doing in principle, but we hear come up time and time again in public hearings, is that any new developments must control its runoff water so that it's contribution to the city's land drainage system is not greater than its pre-development condition. So something that's done in principle that's written in here as well. This council has shown a focus on density and vibrancy of our downtown. So when we move to the central business district, we're looking at allowing residential uses to be permitted in mixed-use residential and commercial structures to allow there to be businesses as well as residential, bringing the density down to our downtown core, which helps to attract more businesses, which then helps to attract more residents. So it's a continual spin that helps. We're also redefining our CBD, our central business district, in ways that we're seeing it being development prompted. So, for example, the event center should obviously be in the central business district, and there's different areas where the central business district didn't make sense anymore, so we're pulling that back. And then talking more about the transitional district pod, where reducing restriction in there, so allowing things that used to be conditional use to just be allowed right off the bat, to try and encourage businesses to slowly expand out our central business district through the transitional area. And then also for parks, looking at having universal accessibility for all ages and abilities. It's something that everybody should be able to go to a park at any point in time and not have to pass by it. So then moving over to the zoning bylaw, we always love to talk about reducing red tape, and I think taking 155 pages of policies down to 106, a reduction of 49 pages, is a great way to do that. It also helps our developers to be able to look at the documents a lot clearer, and be able to get the information a lot easier. Saves time for the developers as well as administration. And with regards to, again, our vibrant downtown, requiring parking maybe reduced by 1/3. That's something that's important, because in a downtown area, you don't want to have large swaths of just pavement. You want to have businesses. You want to be bringing people in. And parking lots don't bring people downtown. Businesses do. With regards to definitions, there was we find as the city grows, new organizations and cities come with that. And this city is obviously a very quickly growing city. So the new definition of an emergency residential shelter seemed to be a direction that we needed to go. Because within a designated zone, many smaller areas with certain characteristics and cultures can occur, which may not be conducive to have an emergency shelter in the near vicinity. So zoning areas can be large. So it's important that with this new definition, it's a conditional use, that the neighborhood has the opportunity for input. And that's important to ensure that the facility is a good fit, not only for where the facility is, but for the neighborhood as well. Just going back to talk about red tape for a moment, Mr. Workington touched on it, but replacing requirements that were based on hard-to-measure metrics. I know I've had a few organizations come and talk about not knowing how much parking they're needing because, well, we have this many chairs, but really we have this much. So like, where's the line? So just make it clear and concise so that everybody's able to easily read the definitions and read our zoning bylaw. And something that Councillor Penner also touched on too is to be able to assist in our aging population. Our aging population is living longer and healthier and healthy for a longer time, pardon me. And so it's important for them to still have dignity in life, as well as there's cost impacts that are making, that we're seeing children stay within the family nucleus for a longer time, but are still wanting to be able to have the opportunity to have some autonomy. So the detached secondary suites in zoned areas where they're larger lots, rural residential development reserve, those kind of areas, allow when you have the principal owner or the owner living in the principal residence to then also have a secondary suite that would be much smaller, but allow dignity and autonomy for other family members as well. So there's a lot more in here that I could go, but I think I've taken up enough time, so I'll let the rest of the council have their input.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from council? Councillor Siemens.
Thank you. I won't repeat many of the things that were said, but to add my comments, I like this plan too. I was there as well as the Deputy Mayor were there when I think we first started the first community plan way back, I believe in 2008 is when we So, and much has changed since then. I appreciate the fact that when we go through this, the view is to remove the red tape. That was spoken about, but and this is for a 25 to 30-year plan. How do we look forward? And that's what these plans are all about. And it's not only for city staff and administration, but also a developer moving into town and a business owner moving into town. They have a good understanding. They can read through this document and they have a good and better understanding of who Steinbach is and the direction that we want to go. I think one of the interesting things for me was we had two streams in our old OCP, or our official community plan, and that was vision principles. But now we have planning growth, as was mentioned, planning for economic development and growth and housing, active transportation and recreation. For me, I think active transportation is something as well that's critical to our community. How do we get from all our micro communities without a vehicle? How do we do that by bike, by walking? And I think that is very important. And we saw it during COVID, how many more people were out and about during that time. The environment and our downtown, planning for downtown with the CBD, Central Business District, has made a difference. And when we had it in our first plan, I think 2 plans ago when we first came out with it, we keep changing it, but it's for the betterment. And we see some of the development and results of those decisions that we made then. We can start to see them in our downtown because we need a healthy downtown core, as Councillor Penner alluded to. And how planning for collaboration and also planning for a community. How do we do that? And I think this speaks very well to it. Also, the parking requirements, I'll speak to that too, simply because where businesses downtown, the restaurants downtown, the various different places to be, they're destination places. So I agree that people will park and they will attend those places. So reducing the parking, I think, is critical. I also do not like big expanses of asphalt everywhere, but I agree with what it is. I agree with all the comments made. I know that we've put a lot of work in, not as much as administration's put in, but I appreciate the document the way it stands today, and I look forward to what the public has to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything in closing?
I just wanted to commend administration on the work they've done. I think this is a vastly improved document from what we've seen before. It's more efficient. It is making adjustments for what we're actually seeing happening in the city. And so I appreciate their work on this document, and I look forward to hearing what the public has to say about it.
Thank you, Councillor Penner. Well, Council has often said that the municipal government is the level of government that's closest to the people, and this is a prime example of that. This is the kind of stuff that really matters, is where we are setting direction for how our city is going to continue to grow in the years and decades ahead. Obviously, I won't rehash everything that was said in terms of my summary here. Obviously, we have essentially 2 plans here that we're moving forward with. The first is the official community plan. This is our long-range document. This is the document where we're envisioning, 25, 50 years from now, and so we are making changes in there, as has been noted, in regards to increasing active transportation networks, having a clearer definition of what is included in the central business district, and certainly including the entire event center area. Makes sense. It also makes sense to remove areas that do not make sense to be in that section anymore. And so the official community plan is setting our long-term vision. The zoning bylaw is dealing more with the immediate 5-year window, and that's where it gets into some of the nuts and bolts. And some of the things that have been highlighted, I think, are very important to note. Obviously, the change in terms of some of the parking requirements, as is noted, that in the central business district, required parking can be reduced by 1/3 for all uses, because the reality is, as has been noted, we want people to come downtown, we want businesses there, and if you have just large empty parking lots, that's not what attracts people there. Similarly, with the transitional district, which is immediately around the central business district, we are increasing more flexibility there, both in terms of parking for commercial uses, and then also permitting things such as offices and personal services and restaurants and clinics as of right in existing buildings. Previously, that required a conditional use, but again, it's part of the whole transition that we want to encourage those types of uses. And then, as has also been noted, there have been some definitional changes, and the one that's been mentioned by several members of council is the emergency residential shelter. And I think it makes sense for us to be clear with that definition, that the social services definition doesn't fully encapsulate an emergency residential shelter. Those two are not the same. Social services generally operating only during the daytime, during defined hours. Emergency residential shelter is something that is potentially open 24 hours a day and has obviously a very different type of impact. And so the intent here is to turn that into a conditional use in the various commercial districts and in a couple other districts as well. And as has been noted, and I think this is very important, it gives the neighborhood an opportunity to provide comment. It ensures that before any such plan goes ahead, that there is a presentation to council and that everyone in the neighborhood has an opportunity to come and ask questions and get information. There are a lot of different areas where we have conditional uses, a lot of other areas that have that type of requirement. This is something that it makes sense to have that use as well. The reality is that these types of shelters can have an impact on a neighborhood, and in a particular area, it might be an appropriate use, it might not be, it depends. And that's why we have the conditional use option in the first place. And I think it makes sense to have this clear definition with the conditional use requirement. And so that is also a sensible change that we're making here. So Council, I'm very excited with the direction that we're going. I think that we have a good plan going forward. There will obviously be opportunities for the public to be able to weigh in. There will be an open house coming up. As Ms. Gaudette had noted, there will be an official public hearing as well at Council. The official community plan will also have to get official minister approval, so that will take some time. But we are moving in a positive direction, and I commend our staff for the hard work that they've done. And I look forward to seeing us move together on this. So I will obviously be voting in favor of the resolution. So I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll move down to administration. So 9A, accounts payable, that is at the back of the book. Can I get a motion to approve? Councillor Damien Penner, seconded by Councillor Bill Hiebert. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9B, financial statements ending October 31st, 2024. That is also at the back of the book. Council, can I get a motion to approve? Councillor Siemens, seconded by Councillor Susan Penner. I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9C, 2025 City of Steinbach Emergency Plan Amendments. Mr. Workington, can I get you to introduce this one, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. This report, it's fairly short on page 13. The city's emergency measures coordinator provides an update to administration and to council on an annual basis as to recommended changes. Recommendation from administration is council approve these changes as provided on page 13.
Thank you, Mr. Workington. Council, can I get a motion? Councillor Damien Penner.
Motion to approve as presented.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Bill Hiebert. Go ahead.
Not much to say here, but essentially he's just updating his contact information in the emergency plan. So I think it must have been a great plan the last time he did revisions, so we just need to update some information.
Okay. Anything to add?
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay, well, let's update that contact information. Council, I will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9D, Subdivision 4451-2024-9020. That's on page 14. Mr. Workington, can I get you to introduce this one, please?
Yes, for members of council's information, this is application for subdivision file 4451-2024-9020. The applicant is Blue Stem Development, with the registered owner being Clearview Consumers Co-op Ltd. It is a subdivision application to revise two properties located at 111 and 115 PTH 12 North. And essentially what it is a boundary realignment. The existing Clearview Co-op gas station that's located at 115 PTH 12 North is proposing to expand its parcel of land to incorporate all facilities that are presently on the site. And the proposal is to do that by taking some additional land from the currently vacant lot that is currently present immediately to the north. Recommendation from administration is that City Council approve the application for subdivision, subject to a development agreement.
Thank you. Council, can I get a motion? Councillor Susan Penner?
Motion to approve.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Jake Siemens. Councillor Penner?
This is a pretty straightforward request because both pieces of land are owned by the same landowner. It's really just them just shifting the boundary line there between the two lots. I don't see why we wouldn't approve this. It makes sense for them, and I suppose it still keeps the second lot available for development.
Councillor Siemens, anything?
Nothing further.
No? Anything else from council? Anything in closing?
Nothing further.
Okay, Councillor, so Council, this is essentially a boundary realignment, and so I will vote in favor as well. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Item 9E, the Municipal Board Order Resolution from 2016. Municipal Board doesn't always operate that quickly. Council, we have the resolution before us to accept this. Or do we need Councillor Mr. Workey, do we need a motion on this one?
Yes, motion to accept.
Okay, can I get a motion to accept? Councillor Siemens, seconded by Councillor Hiebert, Bill Hiebert. Councillor Siemens?
I am assuming that they've waited a long time for this, and hopefully they're happy with it. I don't know exactly whether they were applying to reduce their assessment or not, but that is the final, the municipal board has the final authority to make that decision. So all we can do is vote in favor of it.
Yep. Councillor Hiebert?
No further comment.
Okay. Council, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We have item F, and that is our 2025 regular council meetings. Council, we always set our agenda or council meetings for the upcoming year. I will just draw everyone's attention that in the first council meeting in July, July 1st is a Tuesday, and we are not going to have a council meeting on Canada Day, so that one council meeting has been moved to Wednesday, July 2nd. Otherwise, it's the first and third Tuesday of the month as per usual. And so, Council, do we, Mr. Workington, I should have checked on this. Do we need a resolution on this one to adopt?
Yes, please.
Okay, then can I get a motion to adopt? Councillor Susan Penner, seconded by Councillor Damien Penner. Any comments? Okay, we like to meet. All those, well, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. 9F, 9G, bylaw 2258, animal control bylaw, first reading. Mr. Workington, can I get you to introduce this one, please?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I will defer to Adam Thiessen, the city's corporate services manager, for this one.
All right, thank you. Yes, this draft bylaw was put together to address some key issues, specifically to deal with repeat offenses of the existing animal control bylaw, to address the dog park that's been created in L.A. Barkman Park there, and to clarify that the provisions around wildlife and that it's the responsibility of the property owner to remove it if they so choose. I've also got a summary of the changes that have been made, and I'll run through that as quick as I can to give a summary. So general cleanup and language formatting. The old bylaw included several positions where dogs, cats, and other animals were dealt with separately. The new bylaw brings those all together into the general provisions section to be more concise. And even though a number of provisions have been added, the overall bylaw is shorter, actually. Moving on, the provisions regarding seizing of dogs, cats, or household pets. The new draft bylaw adds some provisions where animal control officers are able to seize animals for any bylaw contravention that isn't remedied within 14 days of giving notice. For situations where 3 or more tickets have been issued for the exact same offense, and in situations where an animal is a threat to public safety. As mentioned, there's some clarification added in the draft bylaw in section 2.2 and 8.4 regarding wildlife, just making it clear that removal of wildlife is the responsibility of each individual property owner. Fees in the bylaw, the current animal control bylaw has dog license fees and impoundment fees in the bylaw. What we're recommending is that those actually be moved to the city's fee schedule that council approves, accepts each year. And then I've also done a review of the dog license fees. Right now in Steinbach, we have a lifetime license fee of $25 for an unaltered dog and $10 for an altered dog. We're recommending that those fees be increased to $60 for an unaltered dog and $25 for an altered dog, and that the fee, the license fee, remain as a lifetime license. Maximum age of dog before the license requirement. Presently, any dog older than 3 months is required to have a dog license. Upon review of common practice in Manitoba, we found that most municipalities are only requiring that dog license around 4 to 6 months. So we're recommending that that be changed to 6 months instead of 3 for Steinbach. Some provisions for regarding keeping of dogs outdoors. So section 12.4 of the draft bylaw, the intent here is to reduce issues that arise from residents leaving dogs out in the yard during the day while they're away. The new draft bylaw requires dog owners to have a responsible person who is capable of controlling the dog present on their property when the dog is outdoors. And then section 17.2 of the draft bylaw, it's in addition requiring whoever's looking after a dog that they are not able to, that they must not allow the dog to damage property belonging to someone other than the owner. Section 2.3, the definition, and 18 deal with provisions regarding the dog park. Essentially, it's the same rules that we have posted at the dog park now, but we're putting them in the bylaw so that it's better enforceable, easier to enforce for animal control officers. Provisions regarding the existing pit bull ban. We have a separate pit bull ban bylaw presently, bylaw 1307, passed in 1991. So what we're doing here is we're actually combining that bylaw with the animal control bylaw to reduce the number of bylaws in the city's structure, as well as make it so that all animal-related bylaws are in one place. Besides that, the existing pit bull bylaw number 1307 currently relies on information in the schedules to determine whether a dog is a pit bull or not. The draft bylaw follows the lead of the City of Winnipeg, who recently reviewed this, and requires the pet owner to obtain a veterinarian's opinion as to the breed of the dog instead. And this change improves the objectivity and reduces the liability for the city and animal control officers when making these assessments. Moving on, the existing bylaw number 1892 spent a good bit of verbiage on defining and talking about euthanasia. And while that is informative, it's not necessarily helpful for the enforcement of the rest of the bylaw. Euthanasia and it's regulated by the province of Manitoba as it is, and so it's not necessary to also have it in the city's bylaw. Bylaw 1892, they had a few sections, 4.9, 5.2, and 5.3, looking at securing dogs in vehicles, tethering dogs, which got into specifics about different leash types, and enclosing dogs. These sorts of provisions are also covered in the Manitoba Animal Care Act and enforced by provincial animal control officers. The draft bylaw does have a general provision regarding animal welfare. Section 10 of the draft bylaw essentially just requires that all pet owners must keep animals in a a safe and humane way. But we've taken out all the specifics that are trying to mirror what's in the Animal Care Act, essentially. And then penalty fines, finally, last section of change being made. We have a few fines where the fine in current bylaw is set at $50 if paid in 7 days, and $100 thereafter. And these we're recommending are that they be changed to $100 if paid in 7 days and $200 thereafter. So those provisions are failing to prevent an animal from running at large, failing to comply with off-leash area provisions, failing to spay or neuter a cat. And then the last fine we're recommending to change would be for failure to ensure an aggressive or dangerous dog remains contained on private property or muzzled when off private property. And that's being increased from $100 if paid in 7 days and $200 thereafter to $200 if paid in 7 days and $400 thereafter. So the rationale for these ones being increased and not others is essentially just these are the ones that are a higher risk, either a higher risk to public safety or they drive up the cost of animal control, because it's the key things that we're having to deal with time and time again. And that is a summary of the changes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Thiessen. Obviously, a lot of work has gone into this one as well. Council, we have the bylaw before us, and the request is for first reading. So if someone would like to make a motion. Councillor Siemens.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Hiebert. Councillor Siemens, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. This is as stated, this is a bylaw to replace bylaw 1892 that was passed in 2010, so it's 14 years old. And a bylaw, a pit bull bylaw that's dates way back to 1991. So, and then combine them. So there's a lot of good changes. I think it'll help with managing our pets. Actually, I do have a question for administration now that I think of it.
Yep, go ahead.
Through you, how many licensed dogs do we have in the city of Steinbach today, off the top of your head?
Sorry, I don't have an actual number for you, but I could get back to you if you like.
Just curious, because when we're on the election campaign trail, there are many. So it'd be a curious number. But I think a lot of these changes will, it cleans up a lot of different areas, as was explained, and it also increases fines in different areas. But there's, so when there are things that are animal related, a lot of it is laid out here, so it's very clear. I do find it interesting that if we have a rabbit or a coyote on our property, we're responsible for it now, and do not call the bylaw officer or the animal control. And the other interesting thing I found here was the last page, the prohibited animals. I'm very happy that they're prohibited as well. I can't, so I think there's a lot of good things in here, and we should approve first reading.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Siemens. Councillor Hiebert.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would say the same. I mean, first of all, we need bylaws to protect people and to protect pets. And I think to have these bylaws updated is very important. Like Drew Carey says, never fail to spay or neuter your cat. So I was actually surprised that's in here. So that's one of our bylaws. That's about all. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further from Council? Councillor Penner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor. If there's something that people are passionate about, it's animals. You're passionate about your own animals, and you're passionate about being inconvenienced by other people's animals. So there's always a fine balance of ensuring that animal lovers are able to easily have responsibly own animals and be responsible to the community, to their neighbors as well. And I think that this is a good balance of both of those.
Okay. Other comments from Council? Anything in closing?
Nothing in closing.
Okay. Well, Council, I think we have some good changes before us. Obviously, it makes sense for us to update our bylaws on a regular basis. And as we're doing here is we are simplifying, in that we are combining a couple of bylaws into one. So that way it'll be clearer and easier to follow. I think it makes sense to give the additional powers to the animal control officers in regards to being able to seize animals that are deemed to be a threat to public safety, making that explicit in the bylaw. And so if we have a situation where we ask who let the dogs out, then we can actually deal with that. In terms of the issue of licenses and such, it makes sense to update the bylaw to be more consistent with other municipalities, to set it at 6 months, at which point you need to have your dog licensed. Obviously, we're adjusting the license fees, and the amount we will be charging is very similar to what you see in other municipalities, which of course we've got the comparisons that are here. And also taking the rules that we have in our dog park, which is still relatively new, and putting it into the bylaw means we can actually enforce those rules much more easily now. And so it makes sense to include that provision in there. So I think we're moving in a positive direction. It makes sense to simplify our animal control bylaw and to give some of these additional powers to our animal control officers. So I will obviously be voting in favor of first reading. So council will call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. On to 9H, grant application, FCM Green Municipal Fund resolution. Mr. Workington, can I get you to introduce this one, please?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I will also defer this one to Mr. Thiessen.
Yes, thank you. The FCM Green Municipal Fund program, you've got some information on this stream of it in the package here. It's called the Local Leadership for Climate Adaptation Initiative. And what this piece of the program is intended to do is to support communities that wish to consider environmental stewardship and their provision of infrastructure and municipal services. So the intent of the grant application the administration is recommending would be to help pay the costs of hiring consultants to guide the city in the creation of a climate risk assessment as well as an adaptation plan. And then if approved, then the FCM GMF fund would pay for 70% of the total project costs.
Okay. So council, we have a resolution before us. Can I get a motion to adopt? Would someone like to make a motion? Councillor Siemens.
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt
The resolution.
this resolution.
Okay. Is there a seconder for this? Councillor Hiebert. Councillor Siemens, go ahead.
I think this is good. There's a municipal green fund available, financial support that enhance the quality of life for people, not only in Canada, but exhilarating a transformation to resilient net zero communities. I know that this is a lot of, that the federal government is downloading this to the communities, but we should actually take a look at where we can apply for this funding if it's appropriate for our community.
Okay. Councillor Hiebert, anything to add?
Thank you. Nothing to add to that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anything further from council? Anything in closing? Well, council, this is an application for being able to apply to the Green Municipal Fund program, and so that way we can fund future studies in dealing with climate adaptation. This is something that obviously other levels of government are prioritizing, and this could be valuable information for us to have when we're applying for future grants from other levels of government. So being able to access funds from FCM so that way we can pay for a good chunk of the cost here to get the study done, I think makes sense, so I will vote in favor. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Number 10, council question period. Are there any questions of council? Seeing none, we'll go on to 11, correspondence and petitions. A, St. Rosso Watershed District, the minutes of October 15th, November 4th, and November 7th of 2024. Council, how would you like to proceed? Shall we take it as information? Okay, we'll take it as information. And then 11B, Manitoba Justice, the Urban Police Grant. We have the letter from the Policing Services and Public Safety there. How would you like to proceed? Shall we take this one as information as well? Okay, we'll take it as information. There is no other business, and so then I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Susan Penner, seconded by Councillor Damien Penner. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. This meeting stands adjourned.